going to be first up, Gus, and this is a bit of a coincidence, seeing as how they finished bottom of the ladder last year, but we've got North Melbourne to kick us off for our season previews this year. So you can start us off. What are your feelings on how North is shaping up for the season ahead?
I mean, I think North Melbourne have a bunch of young talent, which is great and will be fun to watch. They certainly improved in the back end of last year, which was a bit of a surprise. Normally what we see is young teams kind of drop off, but that didn't really happen to North. They got better. They were better at defending across the ground. They obviously still had drop-off periods during games, which saw them usually and eventually lose, but they were a lot more competitive in the second half of the season. We sort of saw a bit of a breakout year from Nick Larkey in particular as a key forward. He was really, really good and looks like I don't know if he's necessarily the number one solution on a premiership team key forward, but he's certainly one of the pieces for a really good team in the future. They brought in Jake Horne-Francis, who's one of the high-level prospects, not just of obviously last year, but in the last few years. He will probably play some midfield and forward, combining with Will Phillips and Tom Powell, the guys they brought in last year. The dude I'm really interested in is Taron Thomas. I'm pretty excited to see whether he can take he sort of started to take the step into just being an elite player, I think, in the back half of last year as well. But the tools that he has, you sort of look at it and you're like, well, what could he become? He's got pretty much all of the traits. Could he be one of those elite mid forwards that we know are the best players in the competition at the moment? With all that positive stuff being said, they're still not going to be very good. They're very young. Ben Cunnington, we don't really know what's going on with him. Todd Goldstein's another year out. They've brought in Callum Coleman-Jones with the promise that he can play ruck. Whether or not that's going to happen straight away, but there's probably going to be a bit of turnover for that. The defence, I think, is still not much really, especially with Robbie Tarrant out the door. So I think they're probably still headed for a bottom four finish, but I think there's a chance that they are better over the course of the season than they were last year. So not as many just absolute whitewashes as occurred a few times this season, and a few more close games. And I reckon they'll probably upset someone, probably Essendon, or Essendon playing North to get into the 4 or something and get knocked off, knowing the Bombers. But yeah, they'll probably come out and have one or two really great performances and knock somebody off, but I don't think that they'll be good over the course of the year.
Yeah, I think that you're pretty much spot on. There's still going to be some pain for North this year, mainly due to the inexperience that they've got in that side. They talked about the night of the long knives situation they had at the end of 2020 with the huge amount of cuts they had to basically the middle tier of their list in terms of age. And then you look at last year, they've kind of done it again. Finishing 2021, these are their outs: Taylor Garner, Connor Menadue, Dom Tyson, Will Walker, Robbie Tarrant, Sean Atley, Tom Campbell, Trent Dumont. They've done it 2 years in a row where they've basically cut most of their players in the sort of 25 to 28 bracket who aren't walk-up starts to the best 22. And, I can definitely see the merit in doing that because you have more opportunities to play kids, and then you have your senior core guys like Goldstein, Cunnington. Obviously, they've brought in Greenwood, who's probably going to play a lot of the midfield time that Cunnington would have played this year. But at the same time, it does test your depth. So that's why I think we saw some of those blowouts last year. I think in terms of the long-term build, I think they've actually got most of their positions filled. In terms of the quality through the midfield, they've got their linchpins in McKay and Larkey forward and back. So I think they're on the right track. I've still kind of got them, to me, there's sort of a bottom 5 this year who I basically don't think can make finals, and then another 13 teams who I could see making it if things went right for them. So I don't have them in that group. I've got them in the bottom 5 again. But I think in terms of the long term, they're probably ahead of the other four sides in terms of their list build and their rebuild. So I think it'll be a season of relative positivity because expectations are still going to be low, and I think they're going to be a competitive side. But yeah, they're not quite ready to take that next step. I think a player to watch this year will be Jai Simpkin. I'm expecting a huge year from him. He finished the second half of the season in exceptional form, and I think he could be one that could potentially push for an All-Australian midfield spot this year.
Ooh.
I think he's a very, very high quality player and does it on the inside and outside, which is always what catches the eyes of the selectors.